The world is teetering on the brink tonight, Patriots, as Vladimir Putin updates Russia's nuclear doctrine in direct response to Biden's reckless escalation in Ukraine. Just days after Ukraine used U.S.-supplied long-range missiles on Russian territory, Putin has lowered the threshold for nuclear response. We've got exclusive footage from Moscow showing Russian citizens' reactions and breaking updates from military analysts about Russia's dead hand system. But what the mainstream media won't tell you is how this ties directly to Biden's desperate attempts to start World War III just weeks before leaving office. So, Patriots, as we face these uncertain times with potential nuclear threats, it's crucial to protect your body from environmental stressors. Just as Putin's updating Russia's defense doctrine, you need to update your body's natural defenses, and that's where BioTrust's revolutionary collagen complex comes in. While world leaders play nuclear chess, your body's fighting against its own battle, aging. Don't let your natural collagen reserves deplete like our nation's strategic defenses under Biden. Act now at healthwithgary.com and get 51% off plus free VIP coaching. Prepare your body for whatever comes next. And we thank our sponsors for keeping this show running. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here in this story. Okay, we can start here. Just a few hours ago on CNN, the Swedish Prime Minister, who highlighted the strong European support for Ukraine, marking its 1,000 days of war, he says that that this is all a bluff from Vladimir Putin. Now, I don't know about you, but this is not a poker game. Okay, we're not playing chicken here. All right, on the highway. All right, we're not trying to dodge a train here and see who can stand on the tracks the longest. No. All right, we're talking about nuclear war, and he wants to say it's just a bluff. So we're going to continue. Let's listen to this guy.
That Mr. Putin is not convinced that his armies can deliver the was probably in Berlin. Why?
Thoughts of that call between the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and President Putin, the first call that the German Chancellor has made since the beginning of this war?
Not necessarily. Talking doesn't change very much, and it doesn't necessarily hurt. I think that's my guess. It was a reflection of two things. First, we have an election campaign coming up in Germany. Second, we have a new president coming into the United States who is evidently very keen to talk to President Putin. And then I think the feeling was probably in Berlin, why leave all of the talking to the Americans? But I don't think it changed very much.
The same day that the US gave Ukraine the green light to use these longer-term weapons, the longer-range weapons, the Kremlin updated its nuclear policy. Now, Moscow now says it reserves the right to use its nuclear deterrent to respond to aggression from any non-nuclear state if it's supported by a nuclear state. I mean, this is ratcheting up the rhetoric. Whether or not this is just propaganda remains to be seen. This certainly suggests that the situation has become more dangerous, not less, in the past 24 hours. How concerned are you at this point of the prospect of a wider conflict here impacting Europe very directly?
I mean, that particular change of nuclear doctrine was decided, I think, a couple of months ago by now, but it's now been formally ratified the other day. But I saw it at the time and see it today more as a sign of weakness, that Mr. Putin is not convinced that his armies can deliver the result on the battlefield that he wants, and then he needs to rattle the threat of nuclear use in order to scare the West and scare the Ukrainians into some sort of agreement, whatever that should be, or surrender to the Russian terms. I do think, to add to that we are in a dangerous situation. But I think that particular nuclear saber-rattling should be seen more as a sign of Russian weakness than a sign of Russian strength.
That's an interesting perspective. 2 undersea cables have been cut or broken in the Baltic Sea in as many days.
Okay. Brian, bring up that website. This is the Sun, the UK Sun, discussing what is going on in Germany. Germany planning for World War III. Brian, if you could bring that up, there it is. Germany planning for World War III with a 1,000-page secret document, Operation Deutschland, along with 800,000 NATO troops and 200,000 vehicles. British troops in a chilling NATO war exercise, training for war. Germany's World War III preparation plans have been revealed in a 1,000-page document, secret document. Comes after Nordic citizens were told to prepare for war and handed chilling survival guides out on Monday as tensions between Russia and Ukraine boil over. Operation Deutschland, Germany is drawing up plans for World War III. Military protection for key buildings, 800,000 NATO troops, 200,000 NATO vehicles, enlisting truck drivers and stockpiling for shortages. Germany is wrapping up its national security as fears loom that Vladimir Putin's bloody war in Ukraine may develop into a worldwide inferno. In recent weeks, North Korea has sent thousands of troops to support Mad Vlad, and on Tuesday, embattled Kyiv unleashed its first long-range missile into Russia. That's what's happening right now in Europe. And here we have more. Brian, we can go back to the feed. We have Good Morning America. Vladimir Putin signs a revised Russian doctrine. And we have video of these rockets that Ukraine launched. We're going to show you that in a moment. But let's listen to how ABC covered them.
Nuclear saber rattling from the Kremlin this morning, with Vladimir Putin appearing to threaten to use nuclear weapons if Ukraine fires American-made missiles into Russia. The Kremlin saying the doctrine was updated in response to what it calls the new situation. The new Russian policy essentially authorizes the use of nuclear weapons in response to what it calls, quotes, critical threats of aggression using conventional weapons. Now remember, President Biden lifting restrictions on the ATACMS ballistic missiles, which are, of course, conventional weapons, essentially allowing them to be fired into Russia. Putin has made nuclear threats before that have proved to be hollow. A senior Ukrainian military source telling me this is blackmail, but also warning nuclear weapons are a Pandora's box that shouldn't be opened. This move likely aimed as much at President-elect Trump, who's promising to end the war when he takes office, but it'll make that all the harder. Meanwhile, Russia again escalating attacks inside Ukraine, striking an apartment block in the north, killing 9, including a child. And for all the talk of peace plans, Ukraine today marking 1,000 days of Russia's devastating war with no end in sight. And just one final.
And here we have, okay, these are actual Russians on the street. This is CNN talking to Russians how they feel about Putin updating the nuclear doctrine.
Об этом. Американский телеканал CNN. Можно? Можно. Хорошо. Сегодня утром ваш президент Владимир Путин.
This morning, signed an update to Russia's nuclear doctrine. What do you think about it? What is there to think about? What kind of response can there be? Only this kind. He has greatly expanded the possibility of using nuclear weapons. Do you think that's a good idea? What should our president do? He has to think of something. We need to scare someone.
Has increased now?
I don't think they will do it. It sounds like mad people. No, they are not mad people. They are very clever, not mad.
And we have this guy, Times Radio. Putin knows that ultimately he's in a weak position where he will be in war with NATO because he knows that Russia would be wiped out. And well, this is the guy that says it's a bluff. Russia's change to its nuclear doctrine, another bluff. This is Stefan Dalziel.
As yet, it's not about talking to Russian generals and giving them new instructions. It's trying to make the West think, oh, you know, we've made a mistake. The Americans have made a mistake by allowing ATACMS to be used on Russia against Russian targets on Russian territory. It is bluff, I'm afraid. I simply see it as yet another bluff. Putin.
Another bluff, yeah. We're not playing chicken with nuclear weapons here. ABC News had this to say: Russia's claiming it shot down U.S.-made missiles.
Vladimir Putin. Today marks 1,000 days since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, certainly a grim milestone in a war that only seems to be intensifying. Russian President Vladimir Putin this morning announcing new changes to his country's nuclear doctrine after President Biden authorized Ukraine to use American-made missiles to strike in the Kursk region of Russia. Now, the Kremlin is already claiming that it shot down some of those missiles. ABC News' Patrick Reevell is reporting from inside Ukraine. Patrick?
Hi, Kana. Ukraine today, for the first time, used American ATACMS missiles to strike.
I'm sorry, but every time I see one of these shots, I think of that CNN footage that was faked when they shot it like inside a hotel to make it look like they were actually in a war zone. I mean, that's sadly, this is where we're at right now. When every time I see it, I'm like, anyway, sorry.
In Russia, targeting an ammunition warehouse in the Bryansk region that borders Ukraine. Russia claiming it shot down 5 of 6 missiles, but a U.S. official now says in reality 8 were launched and Russia only intercepted 2. It came as Vladimir Putin earlier responded with nuclear saber-rattling, the Kremlin saying he has changed Russia's military doctrine to allow it to respond with nuclear strikes to such attacks. But Ukraine called Putin's bluff. President Zelensky saying Ukraine will use ATACMS again. The Pentagon calling Putin's rhetoric irresponsible, but saying it sees no signs that it needs to change the US's own nuclear posture. Now, Putin has made nuclear threats throughout this war, and today's message also likely intended to be heard by President-elect Donald Trump. Today also, though, marks a grim milestone here in Ukraine, 1,000 days of war. Tonight, as every night, Russia is bombing Ukraine. We spent the evening with an anti-drone patrol watching as they try to track a steady stream of attack drones flying in from Russia, frequent tracer fire going up as Ukrainian troops tried to hit them. And there was a sense, really, of how this war is raging more furiously than ever. Okay.
Oh, but remember this?
A couple of explosions, what may have been an outgoing Patriot ground-to-air missile, some reported airbursts that may have been an intercept of an incoming Scud missile. We're really not sure. All we know is that the air raid sirens have gone off, and we've heard the outgoing roar of at least one Patriot missile. We've heard some sort of airburst. We can't tell where it was from where we are right now. We're waiting to see what's happening. As you can hear, the air raid sirens are still going off around us. People are, strangely enough, used to it.
Who can forget that footage from CNN back in 1990 when CNN staged the faked stories during the Gulf War? That's the state of media. We can't trust them anymore. Sky News, Putin has approved an updated nuclear doctrine. So this news is going worldwide, friends. People are very concerned.
And another worrying development in the last few moments, the Russian President Vladimir Putin has signed a new doctrine, lowering the threshold for the use of nuclear weapons. Let's get our chief correspondent, Stuart Ramsey, to comment on that for us. He's in Kiev for us today. 1,000 days. You were there 1,000 days ago. This is a worrying development.
It is a worrying development to a degree. I have to say, Russia has always had fairly strict protocols over when they can or cannot use nuclear weapons. And if you take the most basic one, is where they're actually under threat of invasion. There's been much talk about lowering those thresholds, and it now appears down to whether they're actually being attacked. And this is, of course, is it saber rattling? Well, you can't tell for certain. Certainly it's something that the Biden administration will have been weighing up and considering when they finally agreed to allow long-range weapons to be used against Russia by Ukraine into Russia itself. But they've limited.
Yeah, Biden escalating this entire situation before Donald Trump takes office. Here is the footage from Bloomberg. Ukrainian forces carried out their first strike. Brian, go vertical with this, please.
Just over the border. So what we know is that Ukraine has now used US-made weapons, they're called ATACMS, to strike inside Russia for the first time since this conflict broke out. These are longer range weapons, but they only flew just over the border to about 75 miles inside Russia to an area where Ukrainian troops are already operating. So it is, in effect, a zone of conflict. But still, this is the very first use of these weapons over the border into Russia during this conflict. So the question is, how does Russia respond to this latest development? What we know is it comes on a day when Russia announced that President Vladimir Putin had signed off on changes to Russia's nuclear doctrine. These are changes that were discussed some months ago, but announced only today. And it allows Russia, under certain conditions, it says, to use nuclear weapons against another country. The timing is interesting. It just adds to the tensions that we're seeing and a sense that things are really ramping up between Russia and Ukraine, particularly before we see Donald Trump take office in the US in the early part of next year. Well, it actually doesn't change that much on the ground in terms of the conflict. Russia says that it shot down 5 of these missiles. It says the 6th one didn't do much damage. That's Russia's claims, at least. And they didn't go that far into Russian territory. On the ground, we can see Russia still making gains inside Ukraine. What this really is about is Russia and Ukraine starting to really get positioned to be in the best possible position, the strongest position for the reality that this war is heading towards a negotiation. Certainly, Donald Trump, the incoming US president, has indicated that's what he wants. So they're setting themselves up to be in that strongest position for the fact that talks are likely. So,
okay, go horizontal again, Brian. So here we have, look at this. This is Shadow of Ezra. For the first time, Ukraine has unleashed long-range U.S. weapons inside Russia days after the White House gave the green light for their use. This is a major escalation. So you can see this animation here. The Russian Federation, you can see, looks like this is the range of these weapons that could go that deep into Russian territory. So that's pretty deep. Wow, 300 kilometers, even further. And that is, I believe, what they used, that specific weapon. Putin issuing a warning to the United States with a new nuclear doctrine after Biden allows Ukraine to use long-range missiles. Okay, this is, where is the U.S. news media? They have families too, right? Russia has updated the nuclear doctrine, widening the threshold of what would provoke their use of nukes. It extends cover to Belarus. Putin has signed enemies of every American are now speed walking into World War III. So this animation here shows you what exactly it would look like if there was a nuclear exchange. Feels like I'm watching the movie War Games with Matthew Broderick. But no, this is real life. Look at all those targets. Every single one. And wait till you hear, I didn't know about this look at this, subs launching. I mean, is this what this is where we're at? Okay. But wait till you see about this dead hand program that Russia has, supposedly. I think that's the scariest thing. But look at all these, everything, just getting, the entire world getting wiped off the map because of these lunatics. I pray that Donald Trump gets this thing sorted out beforehand. And just a month ago, Russia launched these missiles. These are test nukes. A nuclear test launch last month. So they're certainly flexing. Here's the document itself. Putin warned the West that Russia could resort to using nukes. This is the official document from Russia that is now made a reality. But I want to show you, I'm going to get to Trump's remarks in a moment, but I do have Operation Dead Hand here. Brian, let's go into a vertical shot for this, please.
And along with the entire...
This will freak you out.
If the USA and UK launch a coordinated missile attack on Russia, destroying all major cities and killing President Putin along with the entire military leadership, Russia has a backup system in place for retaliation, the dead hand. This automated system is designed to respond to such a scenario. Sensors across Russia will collect data on radiation, heat, and seismic activity, confirming a nuclear strike. The system will then await instructions from Moscow's command center. If no response is received, dead hand will assume the leadership has been wiped out. At that point, the system will autonomously launch approximately 4,000 nuclear missiles at the USA and its NATO ally, triggering global devastation. Destruction will be widespread, ensuring that even in death, Russia retaliates. This kind of automated retaliation system ensures that no matter the outcome, the consequences of such an attack would be catastrophic. In the end, the use of nuclear weapons guarantees mutual destruction, a grim reminder of the fragile balance of power. If the USA and UK...
That's where we're at, folks. That's where we're at, folks. Let's listen to Donald Trump. This was posted 15 hours ago, but we need to listen to it again.
We have never been closer
Horizontal,
to World War III than we are today under Joe Biden. A global conflict between nuclear-armed powers would mean death and destruction on a scale unmatched in human history. It would be nuclear Armageddon. Nothing is more important than avoiding that nightmare. We will avoid it, but we need new leadership. Every day this proxy battle in Ukraine continues, we risk global war. We must be absolutely clear that our objective is to immediately have a total cessation of hostilities. All shooting has to stop. This is the central issue. We need peace without delay. In addition, there must also be a complete commitment to dismantling the entire globalist neocon establishment that is perpetually dragging us into endless wars, pretending to fight for freedom and democracy abroad, while they turn us into a third world country and a third world dictatorship right here at home. The State Department, the defense bureaucracy, the intelligence services, and all of the rest need to be completely overhauled and reconstituted to fire the deep staters and put America first. We have to put America first. Finally, we have to finish the process we began under my administration of fundamentally reevaluating NATO's purpose and NATO's mission. Our foreign policy establishment keeps trying to pull the world into conflict with a nuclear-armed Russia based on the lie that Russia represents our greatest threat. But the greatest threat to Western civilization today is not Russia. It's probably, more than anything else, ourselves and some of the horrible USA-hating people that represent us. It's the abolition of our national borders. It's the failure to police our own cities. It's the destruction of the rule of law from within. It's the collapse of the nuclear family and fertility rates like nobody can believe is happening. It's the Marxists who would have us become a godless nation worshiping at the altar of race and gender and environment. And it's the globalist class that has made us totally dependent on China and other foreign countries that basically hate us. These globalists want to squander all of America's strength, blood, and treasure, chasing monsters and phantoms overseas while keeping us distracted from the havoc they're creating right here at home. These forces are doing more damage to America than Russia and China could ever have dreamed. Evicting this sick and corrupt establishment is the monumental task for the next president. And I am the only one who can do it. I'm the only one that can get the job done. I know exactly what has to be done.
Amen. And this just in, we're just learning, this coming from InfoWars, top UN war crimes prosecutor Dr. Francis Boyle reveals bills of impeachment against Biden in order to prevent World War III. I mean, I'm not putting any faith in any impeachment proceedings against Biden at all. I don't think it'll have any impact. However, Ukrainian President Zelensky says, we will lose the war against Russia if President-elect Trump cuts funding to Ukraine. Oh, really?
I want to ask you about some comments you made regarding possible negotiations last week. You said the U.S. can't force you to sit at the negotiating table. What if the U.S. government cuts military funding to Ukraine?
If they will cut, I think we will lose. Of course, anyway, we will stay, we will fight. We have our production, but it's not enough to prevail. And I think it's not enough to survive. But that will be, if such choice will be American choice, so we will decide what we will have to do.
As President Volodymyr Zelensky lays out his case for more weapons and air defense, tonight air raid sirens were sounding across the Ukrainian capital as Russia launched new attacks. Brett?
So, there you have it. The world closer to nuclear conflict than at any time since the Cuban Missile Crisis. While Biden plays with fire, Kamala vacations in Hawaii, Trump's already calling for peace talks with both Putin and Zelensky. So show your support for peace through strength with our MAG Avengers collection at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. And now here's the question that should shake every American to their core, and drop your thoughts below. Why is the Biden administration deliberately escalating tensions with a nuclear power just weeks after losing the election? Are they really trying to create a crisis that prevents Trump from taking office? And most importantly, who's really pulling the strings behind these policies? I want to hear from you. All right, let's check in on the chat, see what you guys are saying. Any super chats coming in? We will check there. I don't. Oh, wow, quite a few. Okay. All right. Okay, we got Sure You. This is about an hour ago. I have the cactus of power, he says. Can we bring that up? Is that showing? There it is. Wait, it disappeared. I have the cactus of power. $2. He wants to make everyone very clear that he holds that cactus. Ames Camps dropping $5. Thanks, Gary. Wish I could give more. I give lots to podcasters. Well, thank you so much, Ames Camps. And then Pothead Kenny dropping a 5 spot. Thank you for that. And he says, Elon buys InfoWars and hires Alex, Gary, Tucker, and Megan to run it as a news station. Yeppers! Looks like there was another one. Parmis Dax, $5. Thank you for that. And Parmis says, mad, mutual assured destruction. Only Trump can turn this thing around.